Welcome. Tonight, our journey takes us deep into a realm that is here, now, covering more than 70% of our own planet. We venture into the great, dark and silent heart of the ocean, a world that remains, in its vast, crushing depths, more alien, more mysterious, and less explored than the surface of the Moon or the barren plains of Mars. Our maps of the world are an illusion of knowledge. They detail the land with comforting precision, but the vast blue spaces that dominate the globe are, in truth, a profound void in our understanding. We have explored perhaps 5% of this immense aquatic realm. The other 95% remains in almost total darkness, a world hidden beneath kilometers of water, subject to pressures so immense they defy our everyday comprehension. And in this vast, unexplored darkness, the human imagination has always seen phantoms. We have dreamt of lost continents, sunken cities, and forgotten mysteries swallowed by the waves. Tonight, we will indulge that quiet, ancient curiosity. This is not a journey of hard fact, but one of vast, speculative wonder. We will not seek to prove, but to ponder. We will use the sheer, overwhelming scale of the ocean's mystery as a blanket for the mind, a place to let our thoughts drift, far from the hard edges of the waking world. We will ask the question in a soft, quiet whisper: what if the oceans, in their cold, timeless silence, still hide the echoes of ancient civilizations? What if, beneath the silt and the darkness, lie structures not carved by nature, but by hands? What if, in the places sunlight has never touched, a different kind of intelligence, born of the deep, once looked back at the darkness? This is a journey into the uncanny, a voyage into the what-if, guided by the profound scientific truth that we simply do not know. We will drift through the real, drowned ruins of cities we have found. We will float over the deep, sunless trenches where life thrives on chemical fire. And we will contemplate the sheer, crushing weight of the water, an abyss that preserves as much as it destroys. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It is always a comfort to know who is joining us on this descent into the quiet unknown. Now, dim the lights. Perhaps turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Imagine it as the sound of a deep, slow current, the breath of the abyss moving silently in the dark, miles below the surface. Let the familiar, sunlit world fade away, and let's ease into tonight's journey together as we submerge ourselves and our imagination into the deep, dark, and perhaps haunted waters of the earth. We call our home Earth. It is a name rooted in soil, in ground, in the solid land beneath our feet. But this is an illusion of perspective, a bias of the creatures who walk. A visitor from a distant star, gazing upon our world from afar, would not call it Earth. They would call it ocean. 71% of our planet's surface is submerged beneath water, a single, vast, interconnected body of salt water, holding over 97% of all the water on the planet. Its average depth is nearly 4 kilometers, or 2.5 miles. This is not a thin veneer, not a shallow pond. It is an immense, three-dimensional realm, a volume of living space so vast it dwarfs the terrestrial world 1,000 times over. And it is, almost entirely, a mystery. We live in an age that prides itself on knowledge. We have sent rovers to Mars, spacecraft to the moons of Jupiter and the rings of Saturn. We have mapped the entire barren, dusty surface of Mars and our own moon with high-resolution imagery, down to the meter in many places. We know the craters of Mercury, the plains of Venus, but the floor of our own ocean, it remains a profound, shadowy blank. It is estimated that less than 20% of the global seafloor has been mapped to a high, modern standard. The vast majority, over 80%, has been charted only with the crudest of methods, satellite altimetry that guesses the shape of the bottom by measuring the tiny, subtle bumps and dips in the sea surface caused by the gravity of underlying mountains and trenches. It is the equivalent of trying to map the details of a hidden city by looking only at the vague outline of the clouds covering it. This is the ocean's great secret-keeping power. It is not just vast, it is opaque. Light, our primary tool for exploring the land and the cosmos, fails here. It is absorbed, scattered, and utterly extinguished within the first few hundred meters. The deep ocean is a realm of absolute permanent darkness, shielded from our satellites, our telescopes, and our eyes. To see into it requires a different, slower, more laborious process: sound. Sending down sonar pulses from ships, painstakingly mowing the lawn back and forth across millions of square kilometers of open, often violent sea. It is a task so immense, so costly, that we have barely begun. And so the ocean floor remains the last true frontier on our planet. A place where the maps are empty. A place where discovery is not a matter of zooming in on an image, but of sending robotic emissaries miles down into the crushing, cold, and unknown dark, their small headlights illuminating a patch of ground that no light has ever, in the history of the Earth, touched before. This is the great, dark canvas, the largest, quietest, least understood feature of our world. A perfect, shadowy, and immense repository for secrets. We are creatures of the sun. Our lives, our senses, our very perception of reality are governed by its light. We think of the ocean as a blue, glittering expanse, a world of vibrant reefs and sun-dappled water. But this world, the photic zone, is an illusion. It is merely the skin of the ocean, a paper-thin veneer of life and light, extending down only 200 meters, or about 600 feet. Below this line, the sun's power fails. Imagine descending past that 200-meter mark. The familiar, vibrant blue of the surface fades rapidly, dissolving into a deep, twilight indigo. The colors bleed away, leaving only shades of gray. Photosynthesis, the chemical miracle that powers almost all life on Earth, ceases. There is not enough light for plants to grow. This is the twilight zone. As we continue our descent past 1,000 meters, we cross the final threshold. The last, faintest photons of sunlight are extinguished, absorbed completely by the water above. We enter a new realm, a world that covers the vast majority of our planet, the midnight zone, the abyss. Here, 2, 4, 6 kilometers down, the darkness is not like the darkness of night. Night on the surface is temporary. It is a pause, filled with the memory of the sun and the certain promise of its return. This darkness is absolute. It is permanent. It is a darkness that has reigned, unbroken, for billions of years. Sunlight has never touched the abyssal plains. It is a state of eternal, profound blackness, a visual silence that is as immense as the ocean itself. This is the great, quiet cathedral of our planet, a realm of profound, near-freezing cold, of almost absolute stillness, and of a silence broken only by the faintest geological whispers or the unseen slow movements of creatures adapted to a life built on chemical trails, faint vibrations, and the patient wait for sustenance to drift down from the long-dead world of light miles above. In this eternal night, what could remain hidden? Our most dominant, most trusted sense, sight, is rendered utterly useless. Our satellites, which chart the galaxies and map distant Mars, are completely blind. Here, things do not exist to be seen. They exist, if they exist at all, in a world defined by sound, by touch, by pressure, by faint chemical whispers. This endless ancient darkness is the perfect veil. It is the ultimate cloak of invisibility, provided not by magic, but by physics. It is a realm where something vast, something ancient, something that does not wish to be found, could rest, undisturbed, not for centuries, but for millennia, waiting patiently in a night that has no dawn. As we drift deeper into this silent, permanent, and absolute night, another, more tangible force begins to make its presence known. It builds with every meter we descend. It is the weight, the colossal, almost unimaginable burden of the ocean itself. Kilometers of water stacked one upon the other, pressing down from above with a force that is, to us as surface dwellers, utterly alien and incomprehensible. Let us try to feel this, just for a moment, in our minds. At the surface, we live under one atmosphere of pressure, the gentle weight of the air. By the time we descend just 10 meters, the weight of the water has already doubled that. At 100 meters, 10 times. At 4,000 meters, the average depth of the abyssal plains, the pressure is roughly 400 times the atmosphere we breathe. It is the equivalent of laying hundreds of tons on every square meter. And in the deepest trenches, the Challenger Deep, nearly 11 kilometers, 7 miles, straight down, this force becomes a number that is almost meaningless. Over 1,000 atmospheres. More than 16,000 pounds, or 8 tons, pressing down on every single square inch. It is a pressure that would twist a military submarine into a ribbon of scrap metal in an instant. It is a force that would turn any air-filled, hollow-boned creature, any human, any bird, any land animal, into a dense, solid, unrecognizable mass in less than a second. This, we think, is the ocean's great destructive force, the Great Crusher. And yet, this is the first great paradox of the deep and the first key to its mystery. This pressure, so instantly lethal to us, is not a force of destruction for the life that belongs there. The creatures of the abyss, the strange gelatinous fish, the ancient microbes, the slow-moving worms, they are not hollow. They are not filled with our compressible air. They are composed primarily of water. And water itself is, for the most part, incompressible. The pressure outside the creature is perfectly, effortlessly matched by the pressure inside it. For them, this crushing weight is not a burden. It is not a struggle. It is simply the medium. It is the air they know. It is their normal. They feel no weight at all. And in this, the pressure reveals its true, secret function. It is not just a force. It is a shield. It is the ocean's ultimate guardian. It is the great, invisible, 8-ton per square inch wall that has protected the deep from the turmoil, the change, and the curiosity of the surface world for billions of years. It keeps the realms separate. It is the barrier that makes exploration not just difficult, but a profound technological and physical challenge. It is the planet's ultimate "do not enter" sign, a quiet, immense, and powerful defense. This crushing weight, this heavy planetary blanket, does more than just repel visitors. It also, in a way, stills time. Combined with the absolute cold and the eternal darkness, this immense constant pressure creates an environment of profound, unchanging stability. Chemical reactions slow down. Even the processes of decay, driven by bacteria, are altered, proceeding at an almost imperceptibly slow pace. Things that fall into this realm do not rot away as they do on the surface, exposed to oxygen, light, and fluctuating temperatures. They are, in a sense, held. They are pressed. They are preserved. They are wrapped in a cold, dark, and impossibly heavy embrace. The pressure is a sarcophagus lid, a vault door. It is the ultimate secret keeper, a force that not only hides the unknown, but actively, patiently preserves it, waiting in the deep, silent, pressurized dark. Here, in the absolute, lightless, near-freezing stillness, kilometers below the turmoil of the surface world, another process unfolds. It is one of almost infinite patience, a process that makes the deep ocean the planet's ultimate archive, its most profound memory. It is the slow, ceaseless and gentle rain, not of water, but of time itself. From the sunlit world of life miles above, a constant spectral drift descends. We call it marine snow. It is not snow as we know it, but a continuous, quiet fallout of particles, falling, always falling, through the immense black water column. What is this snow? It is the dust of the upper world, the intricate, glassy silica shells of microscopic diatoms that flourished for a moment in the sun, the tiny calcium carbonate skeletons of coccolithophores, particles of dust and ash blown from distant continents and forgotten volcanic eruptions, the faintest traces of river sediment carried far from land, and the organic remnants of the surface, the cast-off parts of tiny creatures, fragments of life sinking slowly into the abyss. This gentle, relentless rain falls upon the abyssal plains. It settles upon a landscape that is never scoured by wind, never washed by rain, never disturbed by the roots of trees, and, in its deepest parts, rarely troubled by strong currents. It simply accumulates. Layer upon silent layer, millimeter by patient millimeter. A century of this steady cosmic dust might accumulate to a layer thinner than a piece of paper. 1,000 years, barely a noticeable film. But the ocean is patient. Over tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years, this unbroken snowfall of the deep builds a vast, stratified, and perfectly ordered library. The ooze, the silt, the deep, dark mud of the ocean floor is a perfect chronological record of the planet's history. A massive volcanic eruption thousands of years ago is preserved as a thin, dark band of ash. A long-past ice age is recorded in the changing chemistry and the types of plankton shells that fell. The Earth's entire long history is written here, page by patient page, in this immense, silent, sedimentary book. And this is the ocean's final, greatest secret of preservation. This is how it truly hides. Imagine for a moment something unnatural, something not of this world, but of a world on the surface, a structure, a carved obelisk, the foundation stone of a city from some impossibly ancient, forgotten time, perhaps from a coastline that sank beneath the waves in a great cataclysm, its remnants drifting, settling, coming to rest here in the deep. On land it would be found. It would be weathered by frost, eroded by wind, covered by chaotic soil, torn apart by the roots of trees, discovered and recycled by later cultures. But here, in the abyssal dark, here, the gentle, relentless rain of marine snow would begin its quiet, indifferent work. It would settle, particle by particle, on the structure's flat surfaces. It would drift softly against its vertical walls, forming a small rampart of ooze. It would fill its corners, its carved crevices, its empty doorways. Patiently, silently, the silt would cover it. The blanket of time, soft and immeasurably deep, would be laid upon it. After 10,000 years, it would be a memory, a lump beneath the mud. After 100,000 years, it would be a buried anomaly. After 1,000,000 years, it would be a layer of rock, its shape, its form, its secrets, sealed kilometers beneath the seabed itself, hidden not just by darkness and by pressure, but by the slow, patient and unceasing accumulation of geological time. The ocean does not just hide things, it buries them. We have painted a picture of the deep ocean as a realm of absolute darkness, crushing pressure, and a slow, silent rain of sediment that buries the past. It seems, perhaps, a world of total stillness, a place where nothing ever happens. But this, too, is an illusion. The ocean, even in its deepest, blackest trenches, is not static, it is moving. But it moves on a timescale so vast, so slow, so utterly alien to our own, that it almost ceases to be movement at all and becomes something more akin to a slow, geological breath. We think of ocean currents as things of speed and power, the Gulf Stream, a swift, warm river within the sea, or the violent, churning storms of the surface. But this is only the skin. This is the weather, the chaotic, sun-driven, wind-whipped surface. In the deep, dark, cold abyss, thousands of meters below, the ocean moves to a different rhythm, a rhythm not of days or even years, but of centuries. This is the great global conveyor belt, the thermohaline circulation. Imagine in the high, frigid latitudes near the poles, perhaps in the North Atlantic or the Weddell Sea off Antarctica. The surface water, lashed by icy winds, becomes incredibly cold. As sea ice forms, the salt is expelled from the freezing water, making the remaining liquid water not only colder, but intensely salty. This combination, extreme cold and high salinity, makes the water incredibly dense, heavier than all the water beneath it, and so it sinks. It is not a violent waterfall, but a slow, colossal, silent cascade into the void. A great, cold, oxygen-rich tongue of water, miles wide, begins its long, ponderous descent, plunging down the continental slopes, down into the deepest, blackest part of the ocean basins. When it reaches the bottom, 2, 3, 4 miles down, it begins its journey. This is the true current of the deep. It is not a river. It is an imperceptible, planetary-scale creep. It is a current that moves perhaps only a few centimeters per second, or even per minute. A movement so slow that a human observer, floating within it, would perceive only absolute, perfect stillness. This mass of cold, ancient water creeps along the bottom of the Atlantic, a slow, dark river flowing south. It rounds the tip of Africa, spills into the Indian Ocean, and continues over centuries into the vast, dark plains of the Pacific. How slow is this journey? A single, complete circuit of this global conveyor belt, from the water sinking at the pole, creeping across the ocean floor, slowly, gradually, warming and rising in distant oceans, and returning to the surface, can take, on average, 1,000 years. Let that number settle. 1,000 years. A drop of water touching the abyssal plain in the Pacific today might have last seen the light of the sun in the North Atlantic during the Dark Ages, when Vikings were first setting sail before the great cathedrals of Europe were built. The water in the deep is itself an antiquity. This is the true nature of the deep. It is not a place of violent, chaotic change, churning up the bottom, destroying what lies there. It is a realm of profound, almost eternal stability. The environment is unchanging for centuries at a time. The darkness is absolute. The cold is constant. And the movement is a slow, glacial, patient flow, a current that is more like the drift of a continent than the flow of a river. This is the ultimate preservation, a place where time itself seems to stretch, to slow, to almost stop. A place where an object, a structure, a remnant of a forgotten age could lie in the dark, undisturbed, not for a human lifetime, but for dozens of human lifetimes, while the ancient, 1,000-year-old water creeps silently, patiently around it, guarding its secret in the quiet, motionless dark. The abyss is a perfect lock, but a lock implies something of value hidden behind it. Why would a civilization, a thing we associate with air, fire, sunlight, and the building of structures on solid ground, ever come to rest in this cold, black, and utterly hostile void? Let us quietly ponder the possibilities, not as facts, but as faint, branching pathways of the imagination. Perhaps they did not choose the deep. Perhaps they were taken by it. Imagine a civilization not necessarily advanced in our sense of metal and machines, but perhaps wise, ancient, and built entirely on the edge of the sea. a culture whose every myth, every god, every song was born from the rhythm of the tides and the whisper of the waves. They build their cities not inland, but on the very coastlines that we, in our own time, have come to cherish. And then the world changes, as it has so many times in its long history. The great ice caps at the poles, vast frozen continents of fresh water, begin to melt. Not suddenly, not in a single violent flood, but slowly, relentlessly, generation by generation, millimeter by millimeter, the sea begins to rise. Imagine their experience. The beaches of their childhood are gone, swallowed by the waves. The coastal harbours where their ancestors moored their boats are now deep, treacherous reefs. The foundations of their temples, built on solid ground, are now lapped by the high tide, then submerged by it. It is not a war. It is not an invasion. It is a slow, quiet, and inexorable advance of the entire ocean. It is the world itself turning against them. What would they do? Perhaps they retreated, moving their cities inland, generation after generation, carrying with them a profound, traumatic memory of a world being swallowed by water. A memory that might, over thousands of years, be distilled into a simple, powerful story. The story of a great flood, the story of a lost ancestral homeland, a paradise drowned beneath the waves. Or perhaps some did not retreat. Perhaps some, in a feat of desperation or a final, defiant act of faith, tried to adapt, tried to build walls, levees, perhaps even in their final moments, tried to build enclosures to live within the rising water, only to be inevitably, silently overwhelmed. In this vision, the ocean is not a home. It is a grave, a vast, quiet, and perfect grave, which took their cities, their structures, their bones, and pulled them down into the darkness, covering them first with water, and then, as we have seen, with the slow, patient, and eternal shroud of silt. The ruins we seek, then, are not the cities of a marine intelligence, but the final drowned echoes of a Tyria one. But there is another, perhaps more unsettling thought, a whisper from a darkness even deeper than the abyss. What if they did not come from the land at all? What if, in the immense billion-year history of life, in the sunless chemical gardens of the deep vents, a different kind of intelligence arose? A mind born not of light and air, but of pressure, darkness, and chemosynthesis. A civilization whose thoughts are slow, whose structures are perhaps grown, not built, and whose existence we are simply not equipped to even comprehend. These are the two great possibilities that haunt the unexplored corners of our own planet. The ghost of a world like ours, lost, or the presence of a world utterly unlike ours, hidden. It is the first of these ideas, the echo of a lost, drowned, perhaps human, past, that has resonated most deeply within our own collective memory, surfacing time and time again in the oldest and most enduring legends of our own species. Before we can look for what is truly there, we must first listen to the whispers of what we have always believed is lost. Of all the whispers that rise from the deep, all the phantoms of drowned lands and lost worlds, one name echoes through our collective history with a haunting, persistent clarity. It is the foundational legend of the deep, the ghost story of our entire civilization, the ultimate tale of a paradise, a power, and a people swallowed by the sea. This is the echo of Atlantis. This story, we must remember, does not come to us from a time-shrouded universal myth. It is not the fragmented memory of a pre-literate people. It has a specific known source. It was first written down in the 4th century before our common era by the Greek philosopher Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias. The tale he told was specific, grand, and cautionary. He described a magnificent island kingdom, a civilization of immense power and sophistication, located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the Straits of Gibraltar, at the edge of the known world. This civilization, Atlantis, was founded, he wrote, by demigods, and for generations it was a model of virtue, its people wise and peaceful. But as the generations passed, their divine nature was diluted. Mortal hubris, greed, and arrogance took root. This vast, technologically advanced empire, in its pride, sought to conquer the known world, waging an unjust war against the virtuous, simpler people of ancient Athens, the heroes of Plato's tale. And then, the end came, delivered not by human hands but by the planet itself, as punishment for their arrogance. In a single terrible day and night of violent earthquakes and floods, the island of Atlantis, its great cities, its powerful armies, and its very memory, was swallowed by the sea. It vanished beneath the waves, leaving behind only, as Plato wrote, an impassable barrier of mud, a place where the ocean had claimed its prize. For centuries, Plato's story was read as exactly what he likely intended it to be: a philosophical parable, a sophisticated thought experiment, a cautionary tale. It was a vehicle to discuss his ideas of the ideal state, ancient Athens, versus the corrupt, wealthy, arrogant empire, Atlantis. It was a story about the dangers of power, the corrupting influence of wealth, and the arrogance of believing oneself superior to the gods, to nature itself. But something strange happened to this story. It escaped its philosophical container. It began to take on a different kind of life, a different kind of weight. People, in the centuries and millennia that followed, began to read Timaeus and Critias not as a parable, but as history, as a fragmented, whispered memory of a real, physical, lost place. Why? Why has this one particular story from all of Plato's works seized the human imagination with such ferocious, enduring power? Perhaps it is because the story, whether Plato invented it or heard it as an older, distorted legend, touches upon a chord that resonates deep within our collective human psyche. It is the perfect embodiment of a set of profound, archetypal human anxieties and longings. The longing for a golden age, a more perfect, wiser, happier time in the deep past. The fear of cataclysm, the deep-seated knowledge that our civilizations, for all their strength, are fragile, perched precariously on a planet that is itself dynamic and capable of immense, sudden violence. And most of all, it is a story that gives meaning to the ocean's vast, terrifying emptiness. It frames the deep sea not just as a void, but as a grave, a place that hides something, a place that took something from us. The legend of Atlantis transformed the Atlantic Ocean from a simple barrier of water into a vast, silent, watery tomb, a place haunted by the ghost of a civilization that was, perhaps, better than us, or perhaps just more arrogant. It became the ultimate symbol of knowledge and power, lost to the indifferent, crushing silence of the abyss. And so, the search began. For centuries, and especially in the last few hundred years, people have pored over maps, scanned the seabed, and dreamed of finding its real-world location: in the Mediterranean, near Crete; in the Atlantic, on the sunken Azores Plateau; in the Caribbean, off the coast of Spain. But perhaps the true location of Atlantis is not on any map. Perhaps it exists only in the deep, unmapped ocean of our own collective unconscious. It is a story we need to tell. It is the first, most powerful question we shout into the darkness of the abyss. What have you hidden from us? What did you take? It is the Western world's most enduring phantom, a story that launched 1,000 expeditions, a dream that still pulls our imagination down into the cold, silent water, searching for the impossible, faint geometric echo of a city that may never have been. If Atlantis is the great lost legend of the West, a story of hubris and a warning from a philosopher, Its counterparts in the East have a stranger, more modern and more mystical origin. The whispers of Lemuria and Mu do not echo from the halls of ancient Greece. They are ghosts born not from ancient myth, but from the speculative minds of the 19th and early 20th centuries. The story of Lemuria begins, surprisingly, not as a legend, but as a scientific hypothesis. In the 1860s, biologists, grappling with the new science of biogeography, faced a puzzle. They found populations of lemurs and their close relatives in both Madagascar and in India, but nowhere in between, in Africa or the Middle East. How could this be? In a world before the understanding of continental drift, a prominent scientist, Philip Sclater, proposed a logical solution. There must have once been a vast land bridge, a continent that stretched across what is now the Indian Ocean, connecting these lands. He named this hypothetical sunken landmass Lemuria, the land of the lemurs. It was a simple, elegant, scientific idea, and it was, as we now know from the mechanisms of plate tectonics, completely wrong. But the idea of Lemuria, the name itself, was too beautiful, too evocative to remain confined to the dry pages of scientific journals. It escaped. It was seized upon by the burgeoning spiritualist and theosophical movements of the late 19th century, most notably by figures like Helena Blavatsky. In their hands, Lemuria was transformed. It was no longer a simple sunken land bridge for small primates. It became a vast, idyllic tropical paradise, a true cradle of humanity. It was reimagined as the motherland, the lost sacred home of an ancient, spiritually advanced root race, the ancestors of all humankind. It became a story of a lost, gentle, golden age, a world of harmony and spiritual wisdom, long before the rise of our own fallen modern world. Similarly, the legend of Mu arose from a similar impulse, this time in the Pacific. It was first proposed by the 19th century writer Augustus Le Plongeon, based on his own, now discredited, translations of Mayan texts, but it was popularized almost single-handedly by James Churchward, a writer in the early 20th century. He too described a vast, glorious tropical continent, a motherland in the Pacific Ocean, which sank in a great cataclysm, its survivors fleeing to found the civilizations of ancient Egypt, India, and the Americas. These two ideas, Lemuria and Mu, though modern in their invention, tap into the same deep, ancient human longing as the Atlantis myth, but they offer a different flavor. Atlantis is often portrayed as technological, powerful, arrogant, and European. Lemuria and Mu are softer, more mystical, more tropical, often imagined as the gentle spiritual cradles of all humanity. They are the ultimate lost motherland dream, a story of a perfect, harmonious past now resting in the warm, silent deep. Geologically, of course, the idea of vast, continent-sized landmasses suddenly sinking into the deep ocean basins of the Indian and Pacific is an impossibility. The ocean floor there is made of dense, heavy, basaltic crust. The continents are made of lighter, buoyant, granitic crust. Continents do not sink. They drift, they collide, they tear apart, but they do not vanish into the mantle like a stone in a pond. And yet, the names persist. We whisper of Mu and Lemuria. Why? Because the void demands a story. The sheer, almost unimaginable emptiness of the Pacific Ocean, a body of water so vast it could hold all the world's continents with room to spare, is a profound blue silence. And into that silence we project our dreams, our longings for a simpler, purer beginning. Like Atlantis, Mu and Lemuria are ghosts born of our own imagination, phantoms created to fill the largest, darkest, and most unknown spaces on our maps. They are the dream of a lost motherland, a paradise drowned not by hubris, but simply by time, its gentle, forgotten shores now lying quiet, kilometers beneath the endless, shimmering blue of the Pacific. Beyond the specific named phantoms of Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu, there lies another, even more universal, more deeply embedded story within the human psyche. It is a tale found not just in one culture, but whispered in hundreds of different languages on every inhabited continent on Earth. It is a story that seems to be a fundamental part of our shared human memory. This is the story of the Great Flood. The details change, the names of the gods and the heroes shift, but the core of the narrative remains astonishingly, chillingly consistent. In ancient Mesopotamia, we find the tale in the Epic of Gilgamesh, where the gods, angered by humanity, send a great deluge to wipe the slate clean. The hero, Utnapishtim, is warned, builds a great boat, and loads it with his family and all the animals, surviving the cataclysm to become immortal. In the Hebrew scriptures, the story is retold, becoming one of the most recognized legends in the Western world. Noah, a righteous man, is commanded by his God to build an immense ark. He gathers his family and 2 of every animal as the rains fall for 40 days and 40 nights, covering the entire world, submerging the highest mountains, until only the ark, floating on the vast, silent, shoreless ocean, remains. In Hindu mythology, the first avatar of the god Vishnu, Matsya, appears as a great fish. He warns the sage Manu of a coming world-ending deluge and commands him to build a boat carrying the seeds of all life and the 7 great sages, which the fish then tows to safety, tethered to its horn. In Greek mythology, Zeus, disgusted by human arrogance, sends a flood to drown the world. The Titan Prometheus warns his son, Deucalion, who, with his wife Pyrrha, builds a chest, floats upon the water for 9 days, and finally lands on Mount Parnassus, the only survivors, repopulating the earth by throwing stones over their shoulders, which transform into new men and women. And the echoes continue. Indigenous cultures across North and South America, in China, in Southeast Asia, among the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, story after story, legend after legend, they all tell of a time in the deep, ancestral past when the world was scoured, cleansed, or destroyed by an immense, all-encompassing flood. Why? Why is this one particular story so deeply, so universally woven into the fabric of our species? Perhaps, as some have argued, it is a psychological archetype, a universal symbol of chaos and renewal, of death and rebirth, a story that simply, powerfully explains the imperfect world we find ourselves in, a world restarted after a great, purifying failure. Or perhaps, as others have quietly pondered, these are not just myths, perhaps they are memories. Imagine not a single global flood that covered the highest mountains, for which there is no geological evidence, but imagine instead a real event, experienced not by one, but by all of humanity, everywhere, at the same time. This brings us to the next, crucial part of our journey. An event that is not myth, but geological fact. A time when the oceans did rise, dramatically, relentlessly, and catastrophically, swallowing coastlines all over the world. A time that might just be recent enough to have been witnessed by our ancestors, its terrifying, world-altering reality seared into their collective memory, passed down, generation to generation, distorted by time, but preserved forever in the simple, powerful, and universal story of a great flood. Before we look for the physical ruins of lost cities, we must first consider the very real, very documented, and truly global cataclysm that almost certainly created these powerful legends, and which, in itself, created the first true lost worlds. The legends are too many, the stories from every corner of the pre-modern world are too persistent. A global flood, a world submerged, a handful of survivors. What if these are not just parables, but the faint, distorted, and million times retold echo of a real, global, and profoundly traumatic event witnessed by our ancient ancestors? The geological record, written in silent stone and ancient ice, tells us that such an event did happen. It was not a flood of 40 days of rain. It was a flood that lasted for thousands of years. It was the end of the last great ice age. Let us travel back in our minds just 20,000 years, a mere heartbeat in geological time, to the peak of the last glacial maximum. The Earth is a different planet. Immense continents of ice, kilometers thick, sit upon North America and northern Eurasia. The planet is cold, dry, and windy. But the most profound change, the one that holds the key to the flood myths, is the water. The colossal volume of liquid required to build those ice sheets was drawn from only one place, the global ocean. In this world, the sea level was not as it is today. It was 120 meters, nearly 400 feet lower. Let us try to comprehend what this means. The coastlines of our modern world are a temporary illusion. 20,000 years ago, the map was entirely different. Vast, fertile coastal plains, rich with rivers, forests, and teeming with life, existed where today there is only open, deep water. Great Britain was not an island, but a peninsula of northern Europe. Siberia was connected to Alaska by a vast, dry land bridge called Beringia, a subcontinent in its own right. Australia and New Guinea were joined as a single, larger continent. And humans, Homo sapiens, our direct, thinking, feeling, remembering ancestors, lived on these plains. They built their camps on these low-lying lands. They hunted the mammoth, the bison, and the reindeer that grazed on these vast, exposed continental shelves. These were the rich, prime territories of the Paleolithic world, the forgotten heartlands of humanity. Then, beginning around 18,000 years ago, the great orbital cycles shifted. The planet began to warm, the colossal ice sheets began to melt, and all of that water, for millennia locked away as ice on land, began its long, slow, unstoppable journey back to the sea. This was the Great Flood. It was not a single, violent wave that scoured the mountains. It was something perhaps even more terrifying, a slow, inexorable, and relentless rise. Imagine living on that coastal plain. The beach where your grandparents played is now deep water. The river valley where your parents were born is now a salty, tidal estuary. Year after year, generation after generation, the sea never stops rising. It creeps, it claims, it swallows. It is a quiet, cold, and patient enemy that you cannot fight, you cannot reason with. You can only retreat. Imagine the trauma of this. You are forced to abandon your ancestral hunting grounds, the sacred sites of your people, the very land where your stories were born, watching it all disappear beneath the quiet, creeping tide. You carry with you only the memory, the story of a world that was, a world that was perfect, a world that was swallowed by the relentless, rising water. This event was not local, it happened everywhere, to all coastal peoples, on every continent, all at the same time. The trauma was universal. It is no wonder that the story of a great, world-ending flood, a time when the ocean reclaimed the land, is seared into the very bedrock of our collective human memory. The flood myths, then, are not just fantasy. They are perhaps the oldest, most fragmented, and most profound history we possess. They are the distorted, whispered echo of a very real, very drowned world. This is not speculation. This is the geological foundation. The ocean did swallow entire human landscapes. The whispers are not just imagination, they are almost certainly a memory. The flood myths, then, are not just stories. They are almost certainly the deep cultural echo of a real geological trauma, the slow, relentless, world-swallowing rise of the seas at the end of the last ice age. This fact, this known and proven drowning of entire human landscapes, provides a profound, solid foundation for our quiet speculation. The oceans did take human worlds. This knowledge primes our imagination. It gives us a lens through which to view other, stranger whispers from the past. If entire coastlines known to our ancestors were lost, what else was lost with them? What knowledge? What maps? And so we turn our gaze to some of the most enigmatic and tantalizing objects in human history, the OOPArts, or out-of-place artifacts. And none are more compelling, more mysterious than the strange, impossible maps. Let us consider, for a moment, the famous map of Piri Reis, compiled in 1513 by an admiral of the Ottoman fleet. It is a beautiful, detailed nautical chart drawn on gazelle skin. Piri Reis noted on the map itself that he had compiled it from over 20 older charts, including maps drawn in the time of Alexander the Great, and even one from a captured Spanish sailor who had sailed, he claimed, with Columbus. Much of the map is astonishingly accurate for its time, showing the coasts of West Africa and the eastern coast of South America with remarkable fidelity. But it is the southern portion of this map that has generated a century of quiet, fascinated, and perhaps wishful speculation. The map appears to show a coastline extending eastwards from the tip of South America, a coastline that some have interpreted as the coast of Antarctica. And this is the central chilling mystery. Antarctica, as we know it, was not officially discovered until the 1820s. And its true subglacial coastline, the shape of the land beneath the ice, was not known until the age of seismic ice-penetrating radar in the 20th century. Yet here, on a map from 1513, which itself claims to be based on sources thousands of years old, is what appears to be a depiction of that very coast, free of ice. How could this be? The mind immediately leaps. It conjures images of a lost, ancient seafaring civilization, a people who possessed a global, sophisticated knowledge of cartography, who mapped the world before the last ice age, before the Antarctic continent was buried beneath kilometers of ice, a civilization whose knowledge, perhaps their maps, survived the cataclysm, passed down in fragments, copied by Egyptians, by Greeks, by Phoenicians, their meaning diluted and lost, until one final fragmented copy found its way into an Ottoman admiral's library. It is a beautiful, chilling, and romantic thought, the ultimate ghost in the machine. A faint, ink-stained line on a piece of parchment, whispering of a completely lost chapter of human history, a civilization advanced beyond our comprehension, ultimately swallowed by the sea and the ice, just as the legends foretold. But it is almost certainly not true. The calmer, more sober analysis of cartographers and historians tells a different, less fantastical story. The supposed Antarctic coastline is far more likely a distorted, imaginative rendering of the South American coastline, perhaps bent eastward by the cartographer to fit the shape of the gazelle skin, a common practice. Or it is a speculative terra australis, the unknown southern land, that mapmakers assumed must exist to balance the continents of the north. The map is a masterpiece, yes, but a masterpiece of its time, a composite of the known and the profoundly unknown, a map of the voids as much as the coasts, and yet the mystery persists because we want to believe. These ambiguous maps, these anomalies, are like the faint ghostly images in a sonar screen. They are the Rorschach tests of the deep past. Our minds, already haunted by the whispers of Atlantis and the very real memory of the flood, are primed to see the outline of a lost world in their strange, alluring, and ultimately empty spaces. But perhaps we are looking for secrets in the wrong kind of fog. The true, undeniable evidence of human worlds lost to the sea does not require us to interpret the faint, speculative lines on an ancient map. It lies not in ink, but in stone, silt, and bone. It lies, waiting, in the shallow, accessible darkness, a realm we have already begun to touch, the first real lost worlds. The flood myths, then, are not just fantasy, they are the deep cultural echo of a real geological trauma, the slow, relentless, world-swallowing rise of the seas at the end of the last ice age. This fact, this known and proven drowning of entire human landscapes, provides a profound, solid foundation for our quiet speculation. The oceans did take human worlds. And we do not need to guess if the ocean swallowed a human world. We know it did. Let us journey now, not to a distant hypothetical ocean, but to the cold, shallow, and often stormy waters of the North Sea, the familiar sea that separates Great Britain from mainland Europe. Today, it is a busy thoroughfare, a world of fishing trawlers, cargo ships, and wind turbines. But beneath its grey churning waves, just a few dozen meters down, lies the tangible, scientifically proven ghost of a lost world. Its name is Doggerland. This is not a myth. It is not a legend. It is a vast, drowned landscape, a former heartland of human habitation, a world that we have mapped, that we have touched, and from which we have recovered the very tools and bones of the people who lived there. Let us travel back just 10,000 years into the Mesolithic period, the time immediately following the end of the last great ice age. The glaciers have retreated, but the sea levels have not yet finished their dramatic 120-meter rise. In this brief, fertile window, the North Sea basin was not a sea at all. It was a vast, low-lying plain, a gentle, rolling landscape of hills, valleys, and immense river systems. This was Doggerland. It was the land that connected what is now England directly to the Netherlands, Germany, and Denmark. It was not a mere land bridge, it was a heartland. Imagine this lost country. It was not a cold, barren wasteland. The climate was temperate, perhaps similar to today, but the landscape was one we can no longer see. The great rivers of ancient Europe, the Thames, the Rhine, the Elbe, did not meet the sea as they do today. Instead, they meandered across this vast plain, perhaps joining into one immense forgotten river system that flowed north towards the open ocean. Picture vast, marshy lowlands, fertile estuaries, quiet lagoons, and gentle hills covered in forests of birch, pine, and hazel. And this world was teeming with life. Herds of red deer, aurochs, the giant wild cattle, and wild boar moved through the woodlands. The rivers were rich with fish. The skies were filled with waterfowl. It was perhaps one of the richest, most productive hunting and gathering grounds in all of Mesolithic Europe. And humans lived there, our direct ancestors, Homo sapiens. They built their camps on the banks of these lost rivers. They hunted the deer, fished in the lagoons, and gathered the abundant plants of the forest. This was not a frontier, it was a home. How do we know this? We know because the ocean, in its relative shallowness, has begun to give up its dead. For decades, fishing trawlers, dragging their heavy nets across the shallow seabed, particularly the area known as the Dogger Bank, have brought up not just fish, but astonishing, chilling proof of this drowned world. They have pulled up the bones of the animals that lived there, the tusks of the last mammoths, the antlers of giant deer and reindeer. But more poignantly, they have dredged up the very people who hunted them and the tools they used. Fishermen have recovered beautifully crafted, serrated harpoon points, carved from antler, designed for spearing large fish. They have found flint tools, axes, scrapers, and blades, and they have found, on rare, breathtaking occasions, the bones of the humans themselves, a piece of a human skull, dredged from the deep, its empty sockets gazing up at a world of water. This was the true flood. This was the reality that inspired the myths. The drowning of Doggerland was not a single violent event like Plato's Atlantis. It was a slow, agonizing, generational catastrophe. As the last ice sheets melted, the sea crept in, relentlessly. Year by year, the rivers became salty estuaries. The lowlands became impassable, tidal marshes. The hills became a scattered, shrinking archipelago of islands. Imagine the last human groups trapped on those final, low-lying islands, watching their entire world, the land of their ancestors, disappear beneath the quiet, rising tide. And then, perhaps around 8,200 years ago, a final catastrophic event. A massive submarine landslide off the coast of Norway, the Storegga Slide, triggered a colossal tsunami that likely washed over the last remnants of Doggerland, wiping the slate clean. Doggerland is not a theory. It is a fact. It is a known, drowned world. It is a vast human landscape, a graveyard, resting in the cold, accessible dark, just meters beneath the keels of our ships. It is the first, undeniable proof that when we ask if the ocean hides our past, the answer is a profound and chilling yes. It is the solid ground upon which all our other, deeper and perhaps stranger ponderings can now be built. Doggerland proves the principle for a landscape, for the nomadic camps and scattered tools of our deep Mesolithic ancestors. It confirms that the rising seas swallowed an entire world of hunter-gatherers. But this leads, inevitably, to the next, quiet question. What about something more complex? What about civilization? What about permanent towns with streets, with courtyards, with buildings made of stone? To find the answer to this, our journey takes us from the cold, stormy and silt-laden North Sea to the warm, clear and placid waters of the Mediterranean off the southern coast of Greece. Here, in the sunlit turquoise shallows, lies something even more tangible and in its own way even more astonishing. Not just a campsite, but a city. We are floating now in the calm, gentle waters of Vatica Bay off the coast of Laconia. The sun is warm, the air still. And just 3 or 4 meters, perhaps 10 feet below the surface, lying on the white sand, is the oldest known submerged city in the world. Its name is Pavlopetri. This, again, is not a legend. It is not a speculative interpretation. It is a real, tangible archaeological site, a Bronze Age town that was swallowed by the sea and lay hidden in plain sight for nearly 5,000 years, mistaken perhaps by fishermen for just a patch of dark rocks on the seabed, until it was formally discovered and mapped in the 1960s. Imagine drifting silently above it, snorkeling in the clear sunlit water. The silence is profound, broken only by the sound of your own breathing. Below you, laid out on the sand with an almost unbelievable clarity, is the complete, intact plan of an ancient town. You can see the foundations of buildings, rectangular and clear, constructed from stone. You can trace the faint, unmistakable lines of what were once streets, pathways that weave between the building clusters. You can see open courtyards, perhaps where markets were once held or families gathered in the evenings. Archaeologists have identified at least 15 distinct buildings, and the site is so vast and complex it includes what appear to be workshops, large halls, and even a network of graves. Cist graves, simple stone-lined boxes, lie alongside the structures, the resting places of the people who lived, worked, and died here long before the sea claimed their homes. This is not a scattered ruin. It is a complete town, frozen in time. It dates back to the early Bronze Age, flourishing perhaps 5,000 years ago, making it a contemporary of the early Minoans on Crete and the heroes of Homeric legend. This was, in all likelihood, a thriving, bustling port town, a vital hub in the first great maritime networks of the Bronze Age. Its streets, now silent, were once filled with the sounds of potters, weavers, merchants, and the calls of sailors mooring their ships. What happened to Pavlopetri? Unlike the slow generational drowning of Doggerland, the fate of this city was likely more sudden, more geologically violent. The region is tectonically active. It is believed that a series of powerful earthquakes, perhaps around 1000 BCE, caused the land in this specific area to suddenly, catastrophically subside. The coastline dropped, perhaps by several meters in an instant, and the Aegean Sea, which had been its lifeblood, rushed in, not as a destructive tsunami, but as a quiet, final, conquering flood, claiming the streets and homes. And then, silence. The city was abandoned, and the sea which had claimed it now became its perfect, gentle protector. The clear, shallow water, the soft, sandy bottom, the lack of strong currents in this sheltered bay, all of it preserved the city, not by burying it, but by simply holding it. It sat in the sunlit shallows, a silent, water-filled ghost town, its stone foundations remaining almost exactly as they were the day the land fell. Pavlopetri is a profoundly moving, almost uncanny experience. It is not a myth, it is a real human city, resting peacefully just beneath the waves. It proves, without any doubt, that complex, organized, civilized human settlements can and do end up beneath the ocean, preserved in astonishing detail. This city, lost for 3,000 years, was found in water shallow enough to swim in one of the most heavily explored seas in the world. And this, perhaps, is the quiet, chilling thought it leaves us with, the thought that propels our journey deeper. If a 5,000-year-old city, complete with streets and graves, can lie hidden for millennia, just meters from a modern beach, what else? What larger or older or perhaps more profound structures might lie just beyond the reach of the snorkel, just beyond the shallow light, in the deeper, vaster, and infinitely more mysterious darkness that waits further offshore? This mystery only deepens when we consider that some of the greatest secrets are hidden not by isolation, but by the exact opposite, by the constant, noisy, and murky activity of the modern world. If a city can be lost in the clear, quiet waters of a forgotten bay, what then might lie concealed directly beneath the bustling, silt-laden harbour of one of the most famous and continuously inhabited cities on Earth? We travel from the quiet of ancient Greece to the coast of Egypt, to the great modern harbour of Alexandria. The air is filled with the sounds of the 21st century, the diesel engines of fishing boats, the deep, resonant thrum of cargo ships, the constant, indistinct call of a massive city. The water here is clouded with the silt of the Nile Delta and the refuse of millennia of human habitation. It is a place of industry, of the present. And yet, just 5 to 8 meters beneath the hulls of these modern boats, buried in the silt and scattered across the seabed, lies one of the most glamorous, legendary, and sought-after lost quarters of the ancient world. This is not a forgotten village. This is the royal heart of Ptolemaic Egypt. This is the palace of Cleopatra, the island of Antyrhodos, the place where Julius Caesar and Mark Antony walked. And nearby lie the shattered, colossal ruins of one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the great lighthouse of Alexandria, the Pharos. For centuries, this was the realm of legend. Ancient writers described the magnificence of the royal harbour, the opulent palaces, the glittering lighthouse with its giant mirror. But the city of Alexandria, unlike Pavlopetri, was never abandoned. It was built and rebuilt layer upon layer, and the exact location of these ancient marvels was lost, presumed destroyed, or buried forever beneath the concrete of the modern metropolis. They were a historical memory, not a physical place. But then, beginning in the 1990s, underwater archaeologists, led by Frank Goddio, began a systematic sonar survey using sound to peer through the murky, impenetrable water. And what they found, lying directly beneath the busy shipping lanes, was breathtaking. It was not a city gently asleep. It was a catastrophe frozen in time. Imagine descending with them into that poor visibility, your dive lights cutting weak, green cones into the floating silt. At first you see only mud, debris, and then a shape emerges from the gloom. Not a rock, but a colossal carved block of red Aswan granite. Then another, and another. You realize you are swimming among the collapsed, shattered remnants of an immense structure. These are the stones, some weighing 50 to 70 tons, that once formed the Great Pharos, toppled and broken, lying on the seabed exactly where they fell in a series of ancient earthquakes. You swim on, and the seafloor rises slightly. You are now over the lost royal island of Antirrhodos, and here the scene is one of almost impossible romance and desolation. Columns, dozens of them, lie scattered like fallen trees. Pavements of ancient streets emerge from the silt. And then, the statues. Colossal sphinxes, their faces gazing blankly into the murky water, lie silently at the entrance to what was once a temple. Statues of priests, gods, and pharaohs, toppled and broken. The very foundations of Cleopatra's palace, a labyrinth of rooms and courtyards, lie mapped out in the mud, its famed opulence now reduced to a ghostly blueprint. They found the remains of her private harbour, the wrecks of ancient ships, and the simple, everyday objects of a lost world. Coins, ceramic jars, delicate pieces of gold jewellery, dropped by a hand 2,000 years ago and never touched again until now. What happened here? Like Pavlo-Petri, this was geological violence. A series of devastating earthquakes, beginning perhaps in the 4th century and continuing for 1,000 years, rocked the city. The ground beneath the royal harbour, built perhaps on unstable silts, succumbed to soil liquefaction. It did not just sink, it collapsed, sliding catastrophically into the sea. And the sea, which had claimed it, held it. The murky water, the accumulating silt, protected these ruins from the prying eyes of the surface world for over 1,000 years. To float above these remains, to see sphinxes gazing into the darkness, to touch the same granite columns that Cleopatra or Caesar might have walked past, is a profoundly uncanny experience. This is not myth. This is the heart of classical history, the world of Shakespearean drama, lying shattered and silent, just meters beneath a modern, noisy harbour. If Doggerland proved that the ocean swallows landscapes, and Pavlo-Petri proved that it swallows entire towns, Alexandria proves that it swallows history. It takes the greatest, most famous structures, the palaces of the most legendary rulers, and hides them just meters away, right under our noses. It is another powerful and chilling confirmation that the seafloor is a museum, a graveyard, holding secrets we are only just beginning to comprehend. We are floating now, not in the quiet turquoise waters of a forgotten bay, but in the busy, murky, green-brown water of the eastern harbour of modern Alexandria. The air is filled with the sounds of the 21st century. The diesel engines of fishing boats, the deep resonant thrum of cargo ships, the constant indistinct call of a massive city. The water here is clouded with the silt of the Nile Delta and the refuse of millennia of human habitation. It is a place of industry, of the present. And yet, just 5 to 8 meters beneath the hulls of these modern boats, buried in the silt and scattered across the seabed, lies one of the most glamorous, legendary, and sought-after lost quarters of the ancient world. This is not a forgotten village. This is the royal heart of Ptolemaic Egypt. This is the palace of Cleopatra, the island of Antirrhodos, the place where Julius Caesar and Mark Antony walked. And nearby lie the shattered, colossal ruins of one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the great lighthouse of Alexandria, the Pharos. For centuries, this was the realm of legend. Ancient writers described the magnificence of the royal harbour, the opulent palaces, the glittering lighthouse with its giant mirror. But the city of Alexandria, unlike Pavlopetri, was never abandoned. It was built and rebuilt, layer upon layer, and the exact location of these ancient marvels was lost, presumed destroyed, or buried forever beneath the concrete of the modern metropolis. They were a historical memory, not a physical place. But then, beginning in the 1990s, underwater archaeologists, led by Frank Goddio, began a systematic sonar survey using sound to peer through the murky, impenetrable water. And what they found, lying directly beneath the busy shipping lanes, was breathtaking. It was not a city gently asleep. It was a catastrophe frozen in time. Imagine descending with them into that poor visibility, your dive lights cutting weak, green cones into the floating silt. At first, you see only mud, debris, and then a shape emerges from the gloom. Not a rock, but a colossal carved block of red Aswan granite. Then another, and another. You realize you are swimming among the collapsed, shattered remnants of an immense structure. These are the stones, some weighing 50 to 70 tons, that once formed the Great Pharos, toppled and broken, lying on the seabed exactly where they fell in a series of ancient earthquakes. You swim on and the seafloor rises slightly. You are now over the lost royal island of Antirodos. And here, the scene is one of almost impossible romance and desolation. Columns, dozens of them, lie scattered like fallen trees. Pavements of ancient streets emerge from the silt, and then the statues, colossal sphinxes, their faces gazing blankly into the murky water, lie silently at the entrance to what was once a temple. Statues of priests, gods, and pharaohs toppled and broken. The very foundations of Cleopatra's palace, a labyrinth of rooms and courtyards, lie mapped out in the mud, its famed opulence now reduced to a ghostly blueprint. They found the remains of her private harbour, the wrecks of ancient ships, and the simple, everyday objects of a lost world. Coins, ceramic jars, delicate pieces of gold jewellery, dropped by a hand 2,000 years ago and never touched again until now. What happened here? Like Pavlopetri, this was geological violence, a series of devastating earthquakes, beginning perhaps in the 4th century and continuing for 1,000 years, rocked the city. The ground beneath the royal harbour, built perhaps on unstable silts, succumbed to soil liquefaction. It did not just sink, it collapsed, sliding catastrophically into the sea. And the sea, which had claimed it, held it. The murky water, the accumulating silt, protected these ruins from the prying eyes of the surface world for over 1,000 years. To float above these remains, to see sphinxes gazing into the darkness, to touch the same granite columns that Cleopatra or Caesar might have walked past, is a profoundly uncanny experience. This is not myth. This is the heart of classical history, the world of Shakespearean drama, lying shattered and silent, just meters beneath a modern, noisy harbour. If Doggerland proved that the ocean swallows landscapes, and Pavlopetri proved that it swallows entire towns, Alexandria proves that it swallows history. It takes the greatest, most famous structures, the palaces of the most legendary rulers, and hides them just meters away, right under our noses. It is another powerful and chilling confirmation that the seafloor is a museum, a graveyard, holding secrets we are only just beginning to comprehend. The ruins of Alexandria prove that the ocean is a museum, a graveyard, holding secrets we are only just beginning to comprehend. They teach us that the sea can swallow history over centuries, hiding the wonders of the ancient world in its murky, silty embrace. But the ocean's power is not always slow. Its most chilling reminders are not just of its patience, but of its terrifying, instantaneous speed. To witness this, we must travel from the slow collapse of the ancient world to the golden age of piracy, to a city that was, for a fleeting, arrogant moment, one of the wealthiest and wickedest on earth. and which vanished in the time it takes to draw a single breath. We journey to the Caribbean, to the coast of Jamaica. We are floating now in the bright, warm, tropical waters of Kingston Harbour. Our time is not the Bronze Age or the Classical era. It is the late 17th century, the apex of the Buccaneer era. Here, on a long, narrow spit of sand, sat a city that was, for a time, one of the most infamous in the entire New World. Its name was Port Royal. It was known, with a mixture of fear and awe, as the wickedest city on earth, a bustling, chaotic haven for the pirates and privateers who plundered the Spanish Main. Its streets were crowded with taverns, storehouses, and brothels, its harbour filled with ships laden with stolen gold, silver, and silks. It was a city built on arrogance, rum, and immense, shifting wealth. And it was a city built, quite literally, on sand. The narrow spit of land that held Port Royal was not solid bedrock, but loose, water-saturated sand and gravel, washed up over centuries by the sea. It was a geological foundation as unstable as the society that lived upon it. On the morning of June 7th, 1692, the planet's geological patience ran out. A massive earthquake struck the island. The shock itself was devastating. But for Port Royal, the true catastrophe was not the shaking, it was the ground itself. The intense vibrations travelling through the waterlogged sand spit triggered a terrifying phenomenon: liquefaction. In an instant, the solid ground upon which the city was built lost all integrity. It ceased to be solid. It became for a few terrifying moments a slurry, a fluid, a quicksand, and the city simply sank. This was not a slow flood. In a matter of minutes, 2/3 of the bustling, wealthy city of Port Royal, its brick buildings, its busy streets, its fortified walls, slid catastrophically, almost silently, beneath the surface of the harbour. The sea, which had defined the city's wealth, simply instantly reclaimed it. Thousands of people, in the middle of their mourning, were swallowed by the earth and the water. When the dust and water settled, minutes later, a vast portion of the city was gone, vanished. The harbour's silt and mud quickly, gently covered the ruins, sealing them off from the air, from decay, and from the prying eyes of the world. Today, Port Royal is one of the most important underwater archaeological sites in the Western Hemisphere, a Pompeii of the New World, frozen in time not by volcanic ash, but by harbour mud. Divers have found streets, the collapsed walls of taverns, plates and tankards stacked on shelves, and, most poignantly, a pocket watch, its hands frozen forever at 11:43, the exact moment the earthquake struck. These, then, are the anchors of our journey: Doggerland, Pavlopetri, Alexandria, Port Royal. They are not myths, they are facts. They are the undeniable historical proof that the ocean does swallow the works of human hands, preserving them in its silent, watery archive. We have established with certainty that it happens. But these are known stories. They are anchors in our recorded history, fitting neatly into our timelines. What happens then when we find something else, something that does not fit? We now leave the realm of the certain and the historically documented and journey to the very edge of the uncanny. We travel to a place where the line between the work of nature and the hand of intelligence becomes profoundly, deeply, and perhaps permanently blurred. We journey now far from the familiar waters of the Atlantic and Mediterranean to the remote, turbulent seas off the coast of Japan, near the island of Yonaguni, the westernmost inhabited point of the country. Here, in the late 1980s, a local diver searching for new shark-watching spots stumbled upon something that has, ever since, ignited a quiet, passionate, and deeply unsettling debate. He found what appears to be an immense, submerged structure of rock. Imagine descending into these clear, current-swept waters, and as you descend, perhaps 25 meters down, an object resolves from the blue. It is colossal, the size of a multi-story building, stretching for perhaps 50 meters in length and 25 in width. It is a vast monolithic block of sandstone, but it is the shape of this block that stops the mind. It does not appear to be a random, natural tumble of rock. It appears to be carved. You see, terraces, flat, level expanses, like the seating in a stadium. You see what look, unmistakably, like immense, right-angled, 90-degree corners, cut clean and sharp. You see vertical walls rising sheerly from the flat terraces. You see what appears to be a staircase, a set of geometric repeating steps ascending the main structure. You see channels, grooves, and perhaps even circular holes that seem, to our human-primed eyes, to be deliberately, intelligently placed. This is the Yonaguni Monument, and it confronts us with a profound, almost philosophical riddle. Geologists, looking at the stone, offer a calm, rational, and very plausible explanation. This is natural, they say. The sandstone here is bedded, meaning it has natural parallel layers. It is also heavily jointed, meaning it is filled with pre-existing straight-line fractures. This region is tectonically active. The forces of erosion, the strong currents, the seismic tremors, have simply over thousands of years broken this block of sandstone along its natural straight-line joints and bedding planes, carving it, by pure chance, into a form that mimics human architecture. The walls are simply bedding planes. The steps are just repeated, parallel fractures. It is a geological marvel, yes, but a natural one, a geofact. And this makes perfect logical sense. And yet, the mind resists. We float there, in the deep silent blue, and we look. We see the precision of those right-angle cuts. We see the symmetry of the staircase. We see the sheer monolithic scale. And a quiet, insistent, uncanny whisper returns. What if? What if this is artificial? The implications are staggering. Geologists tell us that this rock, to be above water, would have had to be exposed at least 10,000 years ago, at the very end of the last ice age, before the seas rose to their current level. This would place its construction firmly in the Stone Age, a time when, according to our orthodox history, human beings were simple hunter-gatherers, living in small bands, incapable of this. Incapable of carving a colossal, monolithic, multi-ton temple or platform. This is the terror and the beauty of Yonaguni. It is the ocean's ultimate Rorschach test. It is the perfect, unnerving line between the plausible and the impossible. It is not an answer. It is a question, posed in silent, solid stone. Is it simply nature in its infinite, patient creativity happening to carve a shape that our pattern-seeking brains mistake for intelligence? Or is it the faint, eroded, and almost unimaginable echo of a human story we have completely lost? A story from before the flood, a civilization whose only remaining monument is this one, enigmatic, geometric scar waiting in the deep. Yonaguni offers no easy comfort. It does not give us the clear, historical satisfaction of Pavlo-Petri or Port Royal. It gives us only the deep, profound, and perhaps most tantalizing chill of the unknown. It is the ghost in the machine, the place where the deep ocean's mystery looks back at us and refuses to tell us its name. The mystery of Yonaguni, whether natural or artificial, forces our minds to stretch, to consider possibilities beyond our comfortable histories. But even here, at Yonaguni, we are still near the surface. We are still in the sunlit, shallow part of the world, in a realm tied to the land, to ice ages, to questions that ultimately revolve around us, our ancestors, and our timeline. We are, in effect, looking for ghosts of ourselves. But what if the deepest, most profound oceanic mystery has nothing to do with us at all? What if the truly ancient civilization is not one that was lost to the sea, but one that was born from its most extreme, most alien, and most eternally sunless depths. To find this possibility, we must leave the shallow, familiar light behind. We must descend, truly descend, kilometers down, into the eternal crushing blackness, to a place where the very foundation of life as we know it is completely rewritten. We are now in the deep abyss, far below the reach of the faintest photon of sunlight. The darkness is absolute, the pressure is crushing, hundreds of times greater than at the surface. The temperature of the surrounding water is near freezing. This is the abyssal plain, a world we once assumed was a vast, cold and sterile desert. And then, in the 1970s, as scientists in the deep-sea submersible Alvin were exploring a mid-ocean ridge, their headlights cut through the blackness and illuminated something that should not exist. It was a forest, a dense, thriving ecosystem of life clustered around towering, chimney-like structures billowing what looked like black, toxic smoke. These are the hydrothermal vents. Imagine a place where the Earth's crust is being torn apart. Seawater seeps down through deep cracks, kilometers into the planet's hot mantle. There it is superheated to hundreds of degrees Celsius, enriched with dissolved minerals, sulfur, iron, methane, hydrogen, and then, superpressurized, it erupts back up into the cold, dark ocean floor. It is a volcanic spring at the bottom of the world, and around these scalding, mineral-rich fountains, life thrives. Utterly. But this life is not based on the sun, it is based on chemistry. This is the great, profound, and uncanny discovery. At the base of this food web are not plants, but bacteria, archaea, microbes that perform a process called chemosynthesis. They do not eat sunlight, they eat the toxic sulfur compounds and methane spewing from the vents, harnessing the raw chemical energy of the Earth's interior to create organic matter. These microbes form thick, slimy orange and white mats that cover the rocks. And this is the grass of the abyss. This is the foundation. Feeding on these microbial mats are other stranger creatures. Giant tube worms, riftia, 2 meters tall, blood red, with no mouth, no gut, no anus. They are simply living sacs, housing symbiotic chemosynthetic bacteria within their bodies, which feed them from the inside. Imagine a silent crimson forest of these impossible things, swaying gently in the hot chemical-laden currents. There are ghostly white crabs, scuttling over the rocks, their eyes blind, navigating by touch and chemical sense. There are shrimp, clustered so densely around the vents, they seem to form a living, shimmering carpet. There are pale, translucent fish and eel pouts, drifting through the darkness. This is a complete, complex, thriving ecosystem, an oasis of life in the deep dark that has absolutely no connection to the sun. It is powered entirely by the Earth's own internal geothermal fire. This discovery, in an instant, rewrote the rules of biology. It proved that light is not a prerequisite for life. It proved that life can exist and thrive in conditions of extreme pressure, extreme temperature, and total darkness, fueled by chemicals we consider poisonous. And this opens a new and far deeper speculative door for our journey. If this can exist, this complex, alien garden of giant gutless worms and chemosynthetic bacteria hidden from us for all of history, what else? If life found a way here, in the most hostile environment imaginable based on a completely different energy source, what about intelligence? What if, in the 4 billion years that the oceans have existed, a different kind of consciousness, a different kind of civilization, arose from this chemical foundation? Not a civilization of fire and metal and cities on land, but a slow, cold, patient intelligence. A mind born of the dark, the pressure and the chemical whispers of the deep earth. A civilization that would be, to us, utterly, profoundly alien. The hydrothermal vents are not just a biological curiosity, they are a philosophical proof of possibility. They are the evidence that the abyss can create its own rules, its own life, entirely independent of our sunlit world. The hydrothermal vents prove that the very foundation of life, its core energy source, can be different. This shatters our most basic sun-centric assumption, and it forces us to ask the next, much quieter and perhaps more unsettling question. If the energy is different, why would the intelligence be the same? Our entire concept of civilization, of intelligence, is a mirror. It is a reflection of ourselves. When we imagine a lost civilization, we imagine us, but older. We picture beings of flesh and bone. We picture hands like ours that can build, carve, and write. We imagine eyes like ours that see in the light. We imagine minds like ours that value speed, growth, and the conquest of the physical world. We search, in essence, for older, drowned reflections of our own humanity, our own biology. But the hydrothermal vents, those silent, smoking gardens of the abyss, teach us that this is a profound failure of the imagination. They prove that life, in its boundless creativity, is not bound by our rules. Life can be built on chemical fire, not solar light. It can thrive in pressures that would crush us to atoms. It can flourish in darkness that would drive us mad. So let us, for a moment, let go of our human mirror. Let us drift deeper into this uncanny, speculative silence and truly ponder, if a different kind of intelligence did arise in the deep, what form might it take? It would not be Homo sapiens. It would not be a primate, a mammal, or perhaps even a vertebrate. It would be something born of that unique environment, a creature of the deep. Perhaps its biology is not based on the rapid oxygen-fueled fire of our metabolism. Perhaps it is a creature of immense geological patience, a life form whose metabolism is incredibly slow, adapted to the sparse chemical energy of the vents, or perhaps even drawing sustenance from the faint electrical currents that flow through the mineral-rich crust. Imagine for a moment an intelligence whose thoughts are not like lightning, but like the slow, grinding movement of tectonic plates, a consciousness that measures time not in seconds or days, but in decades, in centuries, a being that might perceive the frantic, fleeting life of a human, or even a fish, as a meaningless, high-speed blur, like a spark from a fire. What would a civilization built by such beings look like? It would not be a city of stone, hastily built against the elements. Why would it be? In the deep, there are no storms, no seasons, no day or night. The environment is crushingly stable for millennia. Perhaps their structures are not built, but grown. Perhaps they are biological. Imagine vast, intricate, reef-like structures, cultivated slowly over thousands of years, not from coral, but from symbiotic microbes, grown into shapes that serve a purpose we cannot comprehend, a dwelling, a data store, a work of art. Or perhaps their technology is not physical, but chemical. A civilization that communicates not with crude sounds or written symbols, but by exchanging complex, tailored molecules, a language written in proteins, a philosophy expressed through scent trails left in the slow, ancient currents, a history stored in a complex, shared microbial web. And what of their form? We search for hands, for tools. But what if an intelligence evolved from something like a cephalopod, an octopus, a creature whose mind is not centralized in a single protected skull but distributed throughout its being, its arms capable of thought, of tasting, of feeling, independent of the whole. An intelligence that is fluid, adaptable, perhaps even communal. A civilization that is a single, vast, interconnected consciousness, like a giant, sentient, deep-sea slime mold. This is the true, uncanny chill of the deep ocean. It is not the absence of life that is unsettling. It is the profound, almost certain presence of life that is so utterly, fundamentally alien to us. The hydrothermal vents prove that the foundation for such a biology is real. They are the proof of concept that a non-human, non-solar ecosystem can exist. It forces us to accept that if we do search the deep, we may not find the comfortable, romantic ghosts of Atlantis, the familiar, drowned echoes of ourselves. We might find, instead, the signature of an intelligence so different in its nature, its form, and its timescale that we might not even recognize it as intelligence at all. It might be right there in the darkness, a vast, slow-thinking presence, and our noisy, fast, light-based tools might pass right through it, completely and utterly blind to its existence. And where on this planet are our tools most blind? Where is the realm that most perfectly combines this profound, crushing pressure with our own almost total ignorance? It is not just the average abyssal plane at 4 kilometers down. It is the deep, the ultra-deep. We must journey to the places where the ocean floor itself collapses into the planet, the great dark wounds in the Earth's crust, the Hadal trenches. We must descend further, past the twilight zone, past the midnight zone, past the vast 4-kilometer deep abyssal plains. We are traveling to the Hadal zone, named for Hades, the ancient Greek underworld, the land of the dead. These are the deep ocean trenches, the subduction zones, where one tectonic plate is slowly, agonizingly grinding beneath another, pulling the seafloor down into the Earth's mantle. Imagine these gashes in the planet's surface. The Mariana Trench, the Kermadec Trench, the Tonga Trench. They are the deepest places on our world, plunging down to 7, 8, 10, even 11 kilometers, nearly 7 miles straight down. Let us try once more to comprehend the pressure. At the very bottom of the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, the weight of the water above is over 1,100 atmospheres. It is 8 tons of force, the weight of a city bus, pressing down on every single square inch. It is a pressure so extreme, it fundamentally changes the chemistry of water, the very structure of proteins. This is the most inaccessible, most hostile environment on the face of the Earth, and it is almost completely unexplored. We have mapped the surface of Mars, as we've said. We have sent probes to Pluto. Yet, to this day, more people have stood on the surface of the Moon than have visited, in person, the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Our knowledge of this realm comes from a handful of brief, crushingly expensive, and technologically miraculous descents by robotic submersibles and a few incredibly brave piloted crafts. These ventures have lasted mere hours. They have given us brief, tantalizing glimpses, like looking at an entire unknown continent at night, illuminated only by the brief flash of a camera. What have we seen in these flashes? Life. Improbable, delicate, and utterly alien life. Strange, translucent, snailfish, ghostly white, thriving at pressures that should shatter bone. Fields of pale, stalk-like xenophyphers, giant single-celled organisms that sift the mud, shrimps and other small crustaceans swarming in the darkness. Life finds a way, even here. It has adapted to a pressure that is, to us, the equivalent of a constant, crushing explosion. But what do we not see? The trenches are not smooth, simple ditches. They are complex geological landscapes. They have mountains, cliffs, valleys, and forests of hydrothermal vents, all within their 7-mile deep walls. We have explored, perhaps, an area equivalent to a few city blocks of a realm that spans thousands of square kilometers. This is the ultimate hiding place. If a civilization, ancient and non-human, born of pressure and darkness, sought a final, unassailable, and utterly secret sanctuary, this is it. This is the planetary vault. It is a realm where our sonar has difficulty resolving fine detail, where our submersibles can operate for only fleeting moments before their systems fail, where the very physics of the environment are designed to repel us. What if the faint geometric anomalies we hunt for on the sonar screen are not just in the shallow waters of Yonaguni, but are resting here at 11 kilometers down, built from materials we don't recognize, by a biology we cannot comprehend? What if the ruins are not cities, but vast biological computers thriving on the chemical energy and the immense pressure of the trench? The trenches are the ultimate, quiet, terrifying question mark. They are the true, profound, and absolute unknown on our own planet. They are a realm so alien, so hostile, and so vast in their unplumbed depths that almost anything we can or cannot imagine might be resting there in the silent 7-mile deep darkness, waiting. But the ocean's mystery is not defined only by its impossible deeps. It is also defined by its sheer, unmapped vastness. The abyssal plains, those vast, dark, 4-kilometer deep deserts, are not perfectly flat. They are a hidden continent of their own, a landscape of unimaginable scale. And rising from this deep, dark plain, like the ghosts of mountains, are the seamounts. Imagine rising from the abyssal ooze, a mountain, a colossal volcanic peak, its base resting in the 4-kilometer deep darkness, its summit rising thousands of meters, a silent, unmapped Everest in the eternal night. This is a seamount, and the ocean is not empty. It is filled with these. Scientists estimate that there are over 100,000 seamounts rising from the world's ocean floors, a number that dwarfs all the mountains on dry land. We have mapped, in any detail, perhaps only a few hundred of them. The vast majority of this hidden, colossal geography is unknown. They are dark, silent, unnamed, and completely unexplored. They are oases of life in the deep, their rocky slopes providing anchorage for strange, ancient corals and glass sponges, their peaks creating complex currents that draw in nutrients and attract teeming schools of deep-sea fish, sharks, and cephalopods. They are living biological islands in the dark. But it is a particular kind of seamount that draws our quiet, speculative gaze tonight, a form that carries a chilling echo of a different, sunlit past. These are the guyos. A guyot is a seamount that does not come to a volcanic peak. Instead, its top has been sheared off, cleanly. It is a vast, level, flat-topped plateau, sometimes hundreds of square kilometers in area, now resting in the crushing darkness, perhaps a kilometer or more beneath the surface. Geology gives us a clear and fascinating explanation for this. A guyot is a drowned island. It was once an active volcanic island, like Hawaii or Tahiti, its peak rising high above the waves, into the sunlight and the air. For millions of years, the pounding surf, the wind and the rain of the surface world eroded its peak, grinding it down, planing it flat. And then, as the tectonic plate it rested upon moved, or as its own immense weight cooled and contracted the crust beneath it, the entire island, with its perfectly flat, eroded top, began to sink. It subsided slowly, inexorably past the waves, past the sunlight, past the twilight zone, coming to rest, finally, in the cold, permanent blackness of the deep, its flat top a perfect ghostly memory of its life at the surface. And this is where the uncanny whisper returns. If these were once islands, they were once habitable land. They had sunlight, they had rain, they had soil. They were places where life, perhaps even human life, could exist. What if one of these islands was inhabited before it sank? We are not speaking now of Plato's continent, a geological impossibility. We are speaking of a known, common geological process. What if a culture, an ancient seafaring people, built a city, a temple, a settlement on the flat top of one of these volcanic islands? 10, 20, perhaps 50,000 years ago? And what if that island, with its city, then began its slow, inevitable, multi-millennial descent? Imagine it. A city sinking, not in a night, but over thousands of years, so slowly the inhabitants would never notice until the sea finally gently claimed it. It would sink intact into the deep. It would pass through the realms of decay and enter the realm of preservation, the cold, dark, low oxygen, high pressure void. And there, the slow, patient rain of marine snow would begin. The silt would cover it. The ocean's memory would bury it. Somewhere in the vast, unmapped blackness of the Pacific, could there be a flat-topped guyot, a perfect geometric plateau hiding beneath a meter of ancient ooze, the perfect geometric 90-degree angles of a temple wall, the outline of a street, the foundations of a house? These are the true lost islands. Thousands of them scattered across the globe, each one a potential, drowned, sunlit past, now resting in the silent, crushing darkness, their flat-topped surfaces a perfect, haunting and utterly unexplored stage. These seamounts, these thousands of drowned, flat-topped islands, represent the perfect theoretical hiding place. They are a vast, logical, but as yet completely unexplored stage where a secret could be kept. They are the grand, slow-motion what-if of the deep oceans. But what happens when our modern tools, our sonar beams sweeping through the shallower, more accessible darkness, actually find something? What happens when the void, the blank part of the map, suddenly pings back with an echo that does not look like nature? We move now from the deep theoretical possibility to the uncanny, ambiguous, and deeply unsettling anomaly. We ascend from the crushing 4-kilometer deeps of the abyssal plains, leaving the theoretical guyos behind. Our journey takes us to a different kind of darkness, the shallow, cold, brackish water of the Baltic Sea between Sweden and Finland. This is not a vast, unknown ocean. It is one of the most heavily trafficked, most surveyed, most militarily sensitive bodies of water on Earth. It is a sea whose floor has been meticulously mapped, scanned and scrutinized, searched for mines, for submarines, for shipwrecks. And it was here, in 2011, that a team of Swedish oceanographers, using side-scan sonar to hunt for a shipwreck, found something that made them stop. Their sonar, the device that paints a picture of the seabed using sound, returned an image from 87 meters down. It was not a rock. It was not a shipwreck. It was something else. The image that appeared on their screen was of a massive, perfectly circular object, 60 meters, nearly 200 feet in diameter. It looked for all the world like a colossal, domed stone structure, a Millennium Falcon, as the media quickly and unhelpfully dubbed it. It seemed to have rigid, geometric features, straight lines, right angles, and a long runway-like track leading up to it. It appeared to be resting on a raised pylon or pillar. This is the Baltic Sea anomaly, and like the Yonaguni monument, it confronts us with a profound, unsettling riddle. It is the ghost in the machine, the blip on the radar that does not fit the expected pattern. The geological explanations are, as always, rational and plausible. This is a sea scoured by glaciers. It is perhaps a unique glacial deposit, a drop stone, a colossal boulder dropped by a melting iceberg which settled in the soft mud in a strange, symmetrical way. Or it is a natural basaltic rock formation, a volcanic plug, its geometric shape a trick of erosion and the low-resolution sonar image. It is, almost certainly, a product of nature, misinterpreted by our pattern-seeking minds. And yet, the mind resists. We look at the sonar image, we see the circle, we see the symmetry, we see the lines that look unmistakably like structure, and our sonar is not the only tool that failed. The divers who approached it reported that their electrical equipment, their satellite phones, their cameras mysteriously failed as they drew near the object, as if from some strange magnetic or electrical interference. This, of course, is the stuff of cheap fiction, of wild, unsupported claims, and it is almost certainly exaggeration or coincidence. But the shape remains. The Baltic Sea anomaly is likely nothing more than a very, very strange rock. But it is a powerful symbol. It is a symbol of all the other blips, the other strange anomalies that sonar operators, deep-sea mappers and submarine crews have undoubtedly seen and perhaps never reported in the vast, unmapped 95% of the world's oceans. How many times has a scientist, looking at a sonar feed from the deep, seen an unexplained geometric line, a perfect right angle, a strange, repeating pattern, and simply dismissed it as a glitch, as an error in the data, as a strange rock? The ocean floor is littered with these question marks, sonar blips that look like sunken airplanes where no plane has been lost, strange grid-like patterns on the seafloor that defy simple geological explanation, unexplained magnetic signatures. 99.9% of these are, without a doubt, tricks of the light, or rather, tricks of the sound. They are natural geology, misinterpreted by our eager, hopeful, and sometimes fearful minds. But the quiet, uncanny, and deeply unsettling question that fuels our journey tonight, the question that gives us that calm, cosmic chill is, what if one of them isn't? What if among the 10,000 strange rocks and sonar ghosts, one, just one, is the real, geometric, artificial echo of a world, a history, a civilization that we have entirely, completely lost? If we were to find such a thing, what would we expect? Our legends, our dreams of Atlantis, fill our minds with images of glittering, golden-domed cities, pristine marble temples, shining, magical, and intact. But the ocean, the very force that hides, would not permit such a fantasy. The deep is not a realm of air and light, it is a realm of chemistry, pressure, and slow transformative time. And yet, this is the final profound paradox. The very forces that make the deep so hostile to us, so destructive to our familiar world, are the same forces that make it the most perfect, silent, and patient preservation vault on the planet. Let us reconsider the conditions of the abyss, not as weapons of destruction, but as instruments of conservation. We must understand the true nature of decay. On the land, in the sunlit world, things fall apart. The world is an engine of recycling, microbes, fungi, insects, oxygen, sunlight, and the constant chaotic shifts in temperature and humidity. All of it conspires to break down the complex structures of life. A fallen tree, a lost piece of leather, a human body, they are swiftly, efficiently reclaimed by the soil. But in the deep ocean, thousands of meters down, these engines of decay are stifled or absent entirely. Consider the cold. The deep abyss is a world of permanent, near-freezing temperatures, often just 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. This profound, stable cold is the ultimate preservative. It slows down all chemical reactions. It dramatically retards the metabolism of decay bacteria, pushing their life processes into an almost suspended state. It is a natural refrigerator, miles wide and miles deep. Consider the darkness. The eternal, absolute night of the deep means there is no ultraviolet radiation to break down chemical bonds, to bleach pigments, to fade and weaken structures. Consider the oxygen. While the great, slow currents do carry oxygen, the deep, muddy sediments of the abyssal plains are often anoxic or oxygen-free. When an object, a shipwreck, a body, a lost structure, is buried by that slow, relentless rain of marine snow, it sinks into this layer of anoxic mud. And here, the primary engine of decay, the aerobic bacteria that require oxygen to function, simply cannot survive. the process of rotting stops. Even the crushing pressure itself, which we imagine as a destructive force, can, in a strange way, be a preservative. It limits the activity of certain microbes, and it holds things in a state of static, compressed stillness. We have seen this in action. When ancient wooden shipwrecks, thousands of years old, are discovered in the deep waters of the Mediterranean or the Black Sea, they are not scattered planks, they are ships. Their timbers, which would have rotted to nothing in a few decades in the shallow, warm, oxygen-rich surface waters, are found intact, their tool marks still visible, their hulls still holding the cargoes of wine jars and olive oil. They are preserved in a state of almost perfect waterlogged stillness. We have seen the bodies of ancient mariners lost in cold, deep fjords, recovered after decades, almost perfectly preserved, the cold and low oxygen having halted the familiar processes of decay. Now, let us apply this knowledge, this proven fact of preservation, to our quiet, uncanny question. What if an ancient civilization, built not just of stone, but of wood, of fiber, of organic materials we cannot even imagine, was swallowed by the sea? What if its remnants did not just sink into the shallows, but slid in a great catastrophic landslide down the continental slope, coming to rest in the cold, dark, oxygen-free mud of the deep abyss? The stone would endure, of course, slowly covered by silt. But what of the other things? The wooden beams of their homes, the woven tapestries on their walls, the leather-bound books or scrolls containing their knowledge, their history, their stories, perhaps even the bodies of the people themselves. In the sunlit world, they would be dust in a century. But here, in the cold, pressurized, breathless dark, held in the sterile embrace of the anoxic mud, they might wait. They might endure, not for 1,000 years, but perhaps for 10,000, perhaps for 50,000, silent, waterlogged, and perfectly, astonishingly, intact. The ocean is a vault that keeps secrets. It is a cold, dark archive, and sometimes, even in the shallower, more accessible parts of that vault, it gives us a glimpse of the kind of treasures it holds, treasures that rewrite our understanding of the past. In the year 1900, near the Greek island of Antikythera, sponge divers found an ancient Roman shipwreck resting 80 meters down. Among the beautiful bronze and marble statues, they recovered a corroded, unassuming, formless lump of bronze about the size of a shoebox. For decades, it sat in a museum, dismissed as a fragment of machinery. It was only when modern X-ray and CT scanning technology peered inside the lump that the world's breath caught. It was not a simple tool, it was a machine of breathtaking complexity, a maze of precisely engineered, interlocking bronze gears, dozens of them arranged in a differential system, a level of mechanical sophistication that, according to our histories, should not have existed. This was the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient analog computer built 2,000 years ago to predict the movements of the planets and the timing of eclipses. It was a piece of technology so advanced, nothing even approaching it would be seen again in the world for over 1,000 years. This is not speculation. It is a fact. It is proof that sophisticated, complex knowledge can be lost. It is proof that our ancestors were capable of things we barely credit them for. And it is proof that the ocean, in its cold, preservative embrace, is the entity that keeps the evidence. This artifact, this out-of-place object, is the final key. If this sophisticated, geared computer was lost and forgotten in the shallow sea, from a time period we know well, what other, perhaps even stranger technological echoes might be waiting in the truly deep dark? What impossible objects from even older, forgotten cultures might be resting in the silt, their complexity silent, waiting for a light to illuminate the one thing that should not be there? Let us imagine it now. We are no longer snorkeling in the sunlit shallows of Greece. We are no longer dredging the harbour of Alexandria. We are in the deep, in the true deep. We are 2, perhaps 3, miles down, inside the cockpit of a deep-sea research submersible. A tiny, pressurized metal sphere, our only window to the outside world. Outside, there is only the absolute, eternal, crushing blackness of the abyssal plain. Our powerful external lights cut a single, sterile, white cone into the darkness, illuminating a small circle of the seafloor, a circle no light has ever touched before. We are drifting slowly, almost silently, just meters above the bottom. The landscape is a monotonous, gently rolling plain of pale grey-brown mud, the accumulated marine snow of millennia. It is a world of utter softness, of gentle slopes, of natural, random, biological forms. A strange, ghostly sea cucumber drifts past. A pale, translucent fish hangs motionless in the beam. The silence in the sub is broken only by the gentle electronic hum of the instruments and the slow ping, ping, ping of the sonar mapping the unseen terrain ahead. We are watching the sonar screen, watching the circle of light, and our minds are in that slow, meditative alpha state of deep-sea exploration. And then we see it. It appears first on the sonar screen, a line. Not a fuzzy, ambiguous, natural-looking ridge of mud. A line that is perfectly, mathematically straight. It is an echo that is harder, denser than the surrounding ooze. We angle the submersible, our hearts suddenly quietly beating faster. We move towards it. The cone of our headlights sweeps across the mud, and then, there it is. It is not a city. It is not a temple. It is just a corner, a 90-degree angle, a series of large, dark, rectangular blocks peeking through the thin veneer of silt. They are massive, each perhaps the size of a car, and they meet at a perfect, undeniable, geometric right angle. The line of the wall they form disappears into the darkness, beyond the reach of our lights. This is the moment, the impossible, heart-stopping, uncanny moment, because our brains, evolved over millions of years, know one thing with absolute certainty. Nature, in its infinite fractal creativity, hates a perfect, sharp, 90-degree angle. Nature builds with curves, with fractures, with approximations. But this was made by a mind. This was placed. This was built. We follow the line, our small sub drifting over it. The wall is ancient, eroded perhaps, but its artificiality is unmistakable. It is not gold. It is not marble. It is just stone. But it is stone that has been quarreled, cut, dressed, and placed with intention in a place it should not, could not, possibly be. This is the discovery. Not the romantic, glittering towers of Atlantis, but the quiet, profound, and utterly terrifying chill of a single geometric line found in the deepest, darkest, most ancient place on Earth. It is the signature, the faint, almost erased footprint of an intelligence resting in the silt. This single, impossible corner found in the dark is more profound, more unsettling than any legend. It is a whisper that breaks no silence, but in an instant, it shatters our entire confident, comfortable story of the past. But what is this story? The mind, in that first adrenaline-fueled moment of discovery, leaps to the grandest conclusions. It flashes with images of Plato's lost city, of towering, submerged temples, of sprawling, intricate, golden-domed civilizations, perfectly preserved, waiting for us in the dark. But we must let that first, hot, excited thought fade. We must let the cold, patient reality of the deep sea settle back in. The ocean, which preserves, also transforms. The ghost we find is not the living person. let us linger in our submersible, in the cone of light, looking at that impossible geometric corner, and let us truly see what is there. It is not a pristine, gleaming marble temple. It is not a golden dome. The structure, whatever it was, is profoundly ancient. It is eroded. The corners, while undeniably artificial, are softened, worn down by the slow, imperceptible but relentless currents that have flowed over them for millennia. The stone is pitted, scarred, perhaps partially dissolved by the deep ocean's unique chemistry. It is covered in a thick, slimy biofilm of microbes, the first colonists of any hard surface in the abyss. Strange, stalked glass sponges, creatures of the deep, have anchored themselves to its surfaces, treating it as just another rock. And it is, for the most in part, buried. We see only the very top, the highest point, peeking through that deep, soft, eternal blanket of marine snow. The rest, the doorways, the floors, the true scale, is lost, sealed kilometers deep beneath the accumulated silt of ages. We will never see the whole. We have found not a city, but the very tip of its tombstone. This is the more likely, and perhaps more poignant, reality. If an ancient civilization, a human one from the time of Doggerland or even earlier, was swallowed by the sea, we would not find a perfect, sunken Pompeii. We would find a trace, an echo. We would find what our sonar picks up: anomalies, a series of long, straight, parallel lines in the mud, the ghostly imprint of what were once agricultural fields, now buried under a kilometer of water and 10,000 years of sediment. We would find a strange, circular mound on the abyssal plain, the final silt-covered remnant of a great ceremonial earthwork. We would find, as we did in our imaginary submersible, a single, stubborn, geometric corner of a foundation, the only part of a massive structure not yet completely buried by the slow, patient snow of the deep. The great romantic dream of swimming through the silent, water-filled streets of Atlantis, of gazing up at intact temples, is likely just that, a dream. The ocean does not keep its secrets that way. It is not a crystal box. It is a slow, grinding, and ultimately burying engine. And this is a quieter, more profound, and perhaps even more chilling thought. The idea of a perfectly preserved city waiting to be rediscovered is exciting, but the idea of a civilization so ancient, so completely gone, that all that remains of it, all its art, its knowledge, its history, its people, is a handful of right-angled stones and a faint, geometric shadow in a sonar scan. This is a true, deep, existential chill. It speaks of a silence that is final, an erasure that is almost total. It reframes our search, not for a lost kingdom, but for the faintest, saddest, most fragmentary proof that a kingdom ever even existed. We are not treasure hunters seeking gold. We are cosmic archaeologists sifting through the silt of millennia, hoping to find a single unambiguous "we were here" whispered in stone, from a people so lost that their very memory has vanished from the earth. The trace is not a destination, it is a question mark, one that is almost too vast to comprehend. This entire search, this whole quiet, speculative journey, has been defined by our own human reflection. We have been looking for the drowned ghosts of ourselves. We search for right-angled stones, for parallel lines, for symmetrical structures, for the familiar geometric fingerprint of a human tool-building mind. We look for a drowned Doggerland, a submerged Pavlopetri. But what if this is the ultimate, final failure of our imagination? What if the true, ancient civilization of the deep ocean is not the echo of a lost human world at all? What if the trace we are looking for is the signature of that other kind of life? The one we pondered earlier, the one born not of sun and air, but of pressure, darkness, and chemical fire. What if the anomaly on the sonar, the thing that makes us stop, is not a stone, but something else? Let us, for this final quiet thought, truly abandon the human mirror. Let us release ourselves from the bias of stone, of right angles, of building altogether. We must try to imagine what ruins a non-human, non-solar intelligence might leave behind. What would be the trace, the archaeological signature, of a mind born in the deep? If this intelligence was, as we considered, a slow, patient, perhaps biological entity, its structures would not be crude, dead things like quarried stone. Why would they be? Why would a creature that is perhaps itself a vast, interconnected biological network bother to build with inert rock? Perhaps their cities are, in fact, grown. Imagine our deep-sea submersible drifting over a seemingly natural field of hydrothermal vents. But something is wrong. The vents, which should be chaotic, random, natural chimneys, are arranged in a perfect spiral pattern. A Fibonacci sequence, mile after mile, laid out on the abyssal floor. Or perhaps they are arranged in a vast, perfect grid. This is not a structure on the landscape. This is the landscape itself, cultivated, farmed, organized by a vast, slow intelligence, perhaps to maximize the flow of chemical energy. The ruin is a garden of volcanoes. Or perhaps the relics are not structures at all, but vast biological modifications. Imagine our lights sweeping across what appears to be a field of giant, intricate glass sponges. But the sponges are not random. They are glowing, faintly, with a cold, biological light. And they are glowing in unison. A slow, pulsing, rhythmic pattern of light, a silent, mathematical language passed from sponge to sponge across a dark plane, a living, biological data network. The civilization is a pattern of light hidden in a field of creatures we mistook for simple animals. What if this deep intelligence is not physical, but chemical? Its ruins are not cities, but an impossible concentration of molecules. Imagine our sensors detecting a plume of complex, organized proteins in the deep water, a message so intricate, so information-rich, that it could not possibly have been assembled by random natural processes. It is a broadcast, a story, a philosophy written in amino acids, drifting silently, eternally in the thousand-year current, a relic that is not an object, but a thought. This is the true, uncanny, and perhaps ultimate secret of the deep. It is not that we might find a lost human city. It is that we might be at this very moment floating right through the middle of an ancient, non-human civilization and be completely, utterly, definitionally blind to it. Our tools are built to find our ghosts. Our sonar looks for hard, flat surfaces. Our cameras look for light and shapes we recognize. Our sensors look for chemicals we understand. But a civilization based on pressure, on slow time, on chemical language, on grown biological networks. We do not have the tools or even the concepts to find such a thing. We would be like a creature of two dimensions, trying to perceive a third. The trace then might not be a what if, it might be everywhere. The mystery is not that the ocean hides its secrets so well. The mystery is that the ocean may be a secret, a living, thinking one, that we have mistaken for a place. This, perhaps, is the final, most profound and most humbling whisper that rises from the deep, silent and truly alien dark. And what would be the consequence of confirming such a whisper? What would be the true feeling, not of the chase, but of the find? If our submersible's lights did fall upon that impossible geometric line, or if our sensors did register that undeniably intelligent non-human chemical signal, what is the sound of that moment? It would not be the loud, celebratory joy of a treasure hunt ended. It would be something far quieter, far deeper. It would be the sound of silence itself. Imagine for a final time our tiny pressurized sphere 3 miles down in the eternal night. The sonar has confirmed the anomaly. The lights have illuminated the impossible, man-made, or perhaps not man-made, structure in the silt. The first photographs are taken. The coordinates are logged. The what-if has, in an instant, become a what-is. What is the feeling in that moment? It is not perhaps triumph. It is not the eureka of a solved puzzle. It is almost certainly a profound, immense, and almost crushing silence. A silence of awe. A silence of fear. Not a sharp, panicked fear, but a deep, cold, philosophical dread, the cosmic chill we have been seeking. In that instant, everything we thought we knew about our own history, our own uniqueness, our own place on this planet, would be shattered. The entire, carefully constructed story of human civilization, the comforting narrative of our slow, steady and solitary rise from the plains of Africa, it all dissolves. We would be, in an instant, no longer the only child of this planet. We would be, perhaps, not even the first. This discovery would be the quietest yet loudest event in human history. It would be a revelation delivered not from the stars by some advanced visiting intelligence, but dredged up from our own dark, wet backyard. A secret our planet has held, silently, for millennia. The implications would cascade through the mind. If this civilization existed, what happened to it? If it was human or near human, did it destroy itself? Was it taken by the slow rising flood, as our myths foretell? Or was it taken by a sudden, violent cataclysm, a warning written in drowned stone? And if it was not human, if it was the product of that other deep chemical life, is it still there? Is it still alive, in its own slow geological sense? Are we, in our noisy, bright submersible, a sudden, unwelcome and perhaps noticed interruption in its billion-year-long thought? The silence of the abyss would suddenly feel less like emptiness and more like a presence, a quiet, ancient and perhaps indifferent intelligence watching us as we watch it. This is the true deep chill. It is the feeling of realizing you are not alone in a house you thought was empty. The news would, of a certainty, eventually reach the surface. It would create a storm of noise, of excitement, of disbelief, of panic. But for the discoverers, in that moment, 3 miles down, there would be only the profound, transformative weight of the silence. It would be the silence of standing before the pyramids, but with no history, no text, no context to explain them. It would be the silence of finding a footprint on a world we thought uninhabited. It is the ultimate uncanny moment, the realization that the map of our own past, the very foundation of our identity, is wrong, and the true map, the real story, is held by the cold, dark, and utterly silent ocean. And this silence is its greatest power. It is the ocean's ultimate defense. It is the final, profound truth of our journey. Because, in the end, even in our age of digital maps, of satellites, of sonar that can pierce the shallow darkness, the ocean keeps its secrets. We have, in our shared imagination tonight, found the impossible. We have seen the geometric line in the silt. We have felt the profound, world-shattering chill of that discovery. We have touched the uncanny, the ghost in the deep. But now, we must gently, quietly return from that imagined moment, back to the vast, encompassing reality. We must pull our gaze back from that single illuminated spot of discovery and look again at the whole. The truth is, we have not found it. The Baltic anomaly remains a strange, ambiguous, and likely natural rock. The Yonaguni monument remains a geological riddle, a captivating what-if. The deep abyssal plains, all 95% of them, remain unmapped, unexplored, and in their crushing darkness, utterly, profoundly silent. The ocean's ability to hide is not a romantic notion. It is a physical, geographical, and logistical fact of a scale that almost defies human effort. Imagine one last time that abyssal plain, a landscape of millions of square kilometers. We search it with our tiny submersibles, casting a light beam perhaps a few meters wide. It is like searching the entire continent of Asia at night during a blizzard using a single handheld flashlight, looking for a single lost coin. The sheer statistical probability of stumbling upon a specific ancient ruin, a single anomalous trace, is almost zero. The ocean is not a museum with its exhibits neatly labeled and lit. It is an archive, yes, but an archive that is actively, constantly, burying its own contents beneath a slow, relentless shroud of sediment. It is an archive whose doors are locked by a pressure that shatters our strongest tools. It is an archive whose corridors are dark, whose currents are 1,000 years long. This is the ocean's great, quiet victory. Its vastness, its depth, its darkness, its pressure, and its patient sedimentary rain. These are not just features, they are a strategy. They are a perfect, passive system of concealment. The ocean does not need to fight us. It does not need to guard its secrets with monsters or magic. It needs only to be itself. It needs only to be vast. It needs only to be deep. It needs only to be dark. Its silence is its armor. Its depth is its vault door. And so, the secrets, if they exist, remain safe. The lost cities, the drowned landscapes, the hypothetical, non-human intelligences, they are not for us. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. They are held in a quiet, cold, and perfect suspension, beyond the reach of our noise, beyond the frantic, fleeting urgency of our sunlit surface world. The ocean, in its immense, indifferent majesty, simply holds its peace, and in doing so, it keeps its profound and perhaps eternal secret. And perhaps, this is the final, most quiet, and most beautiful part of our journey. The secret remains kept. The vast, dark 95% remains a void, a question mark, a blank space on our maps and in our minds. We are creatures driven by an insatiable, brilliant curiosity. It is perhaps our defining trait. We are driven to know, to map, to label, to understand. We climb the highest mountains simply because they are there. We send probes to the farthest planets to fill in the blanks. We dread the unknown. We see it as a failure, a frontier to be conquered, a darkness to be illuminated. And the ocean, in its vast, silent, and stubborn refusal to be known, represents perhaps the last great, unconquerable frontier on our own planet. It is a profound, humbling, and perhaps deeply frustrating void in our collective knowledge. But tonight, as we float here, suspended in this quiet, speculative darkness, let us consider a different, gentler thought. What if the value of the deep ocean for us lies not in the answers it might one day give us, but in the profound, boundless, and perfect question it asks, simply by existing? What if the mystery itself is the treasure? In our modern, brightly lit, hyper-connected world, a world where every corner of the land is mapped, photographed, and catalogued, where information on any subject is instantly available. True, profound mystery is perhaps the rarest and most precious resource we have left. The spaces where our imagination is truly free to wander, to wonder, to dream, are shrinking. But the abyss is infinite in its unknowability. It is a vast, dark, and silent sanctuary for the what if. As long as the deep ocean remains unmapped, as long as its trenches remain unplumbed, we can wonder. We can imagine Atlantis. We can dream of strange, slow, biological intelligences. We can populate the darkness with our grandest, most profound, and most uncanny speculations. This mystery, this vast, dark canvas, serves a vital human purpose. It is a counterbalance to the hard, bright and often mundane certainty of the surface world. It is a place of awe. It is a place that reminds us, with its crushing pressure and eternal night, that we are not the masters of this planet, that we are small, fragile, sunlit creatures perched on the edge of a mystery so vast we cannot even begin to comprehend it. This is a humbling and profoundly calming thought. It is perhaps the ultimate meditation. To know that beneath the surface of the familiar there lies a realm of almost infinite possibility, a place where our most cherished stories could be true. This is a gift. The ocean's refusal to give up its secrets is not a failure of our technology. It is perhaps a deep planetary kindness. It is the Earth's way of preserving for its restless, intelligent children one last great, dark and sacred space to simply wonder. And in that wondering, in that quiet, speculative and peaceful drift of the mind, far from the certainties and anxieties of the day, perhaps we find the very stillness, the very release that we seek. The unknown is not a void to be feared. It is a vast, soft and silent space, a darkness deep enough to hold all of our questions and our dreams without ever needing to provide an answer. And so, we let that vast, quiet mystery be. We ascend slowly from the cold, dark and silent abyss, rising from the realm of the what-if and the perhaps, back towards the familiar, sunlit surface of our world. Our journey into the ocean's great, unmapped heart is complete. We have drifted through the whispers of legend, of Atlantis, Lemuria and Mu, and felt their pull on our collective imagination. We have touched the cold, hard and tangible truth of drowned real worlds. The vast, hunted landscape of Doggerland, the silent, sunlit streets of Pavlopetri, the catastrophic, shattered grandeur of Alexandria, and the instant, frozen tragedy of Port Royal. We have pushed our minds to the limit, to the edge of the uncanny, standing before the impossible geometry of Yonaguni. We have descended into the truly alien, discovering the chemical, sunless gardens of the hydrothermal vents, and pondered the profound, unsettling possibility of an intelligence born of darkness and pressure. A life so different, we might never even recognize it as life at all. And in the end, we have found that the ocean's greatest secret is, perhaps, its very ability to keep a secret. Its vastness, its darkness, its pressure and its patient, sedimentary rain are the perfect guardians of the unknown. Let that unknown be a comfort. Let the immense, dark and unexplored 95% of our own planet be a soft, quiet and peaceful space for your mind to rest. It is a realm of profound silence, a darkness deep enough to absorb all the noise of the day, all the anxieties of the conscious world. As you lie here now, feel that sense of descent, not into a place of fear, but into a place of quiet, profound release. Feel the gentle, supportive pressure of your own rest, the darkness behind your closed eyes. Imagine the vast, slow, 1,000-year currents of the deep sea, rocking you gently, silently. The search is over. The mystery endures. And in that vast, unsolved and quiet mystery, there is a deep and abiding peace. Allow that peace to envelop you. Allow the silence of the abyss to become your own. Rest now. Good night.